This. Mark Sawyer, a political science professor at UCLA, and Andrea Tantaros, conservative columnist and FoxNews.com contributor. Andrea, Mark, thank you so much for being here. I don't know. What do you make of those remarks? You've heard them now. Eric Shawn listened to the entire tape so he could put them in context. Your reaction to those statements from a man who, as he points out, is now on a 2-week tour through the Middle East on an outreach to Muslim nations on behalf of the United States, a man who says that we, America, have more blood on our hands, Muslim blood on our hands, than al-Qaeda has innocent blood on its.
It's shocking. I think it's really shocking. I think that the best case scenario here, Megyn, now with the mosque situation, is that this man is demanding an apology down at Ground Zero, where 2,000 Americans lost their lives at the hands of radical Islamic jihadists in the form of a mosque. The worst case scenario is that he has a very backwards ideology, that he is not as intolerant as he or the left-wing media claims that he is, and he's using this as an act of provocation, as an act to divide, or worse, a 9/11 victory lap.
Mark, you know, it's quite something to hear those comments on tape, you know, and he pins it all on the sanctions, the UN sanctions that we led against Iraq after Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait. So Saddam Hussein did that, and sanctions resulted. And he therefore says that we Americans have all this innocent blood on our hands because children died. You heard Eric put that in context. Nonetheless, those are the imam's feelings about this country. And this is the man behind the mosque that is supposed to promote tolerance and religious understanding. Does it change anything for you?
No, it doesn't change anything, because when you think about his comments, what he's saying is that the sanctions that we imposed upon Iraq had human consequences that anger some people in the Muslim world, and understanding how our policies have affected the way some of radical Islam has tried to twist what is a message of peace in Islam. I can give you the Islamic greeting, Assalamu alaikum, which is a greeting of peace. Is a perversion of it. And some of our policies, including our support for Saudi dictators and other people, have in part angered some of the Islamic street. And he's giving their
Mark,
point of view.
And then I'll go back to Andrea. Let me ask you, though, first, Mark. Okay, so that may be a point, right, that you've got an objection to certain U.S. policies, or in this case, UN policies. Those sanctions were, you know, from a coalition of countries. But to equate UN sanctions with the intentional terroristic murder, slaughter of 3,000 innocent Americans, to even equate those two and say that the American actions are in essence worse, that we have more blood on our hands than al-Qaeda, is really going to be shocking to a lot of people. I mean, whose mind goes there, in other words, Mark?
Lots of people in the Muslim world. I mean, all they see is children dying that don't have anything to do, that don't make a decision about Saddam Hussein. They never voted for him. So I mean, look, this is the whole thing is that he's not making an equation. He's speaking forward to try and understand the ways in which some people in the Muslim world see the actions of the United States, and some of them have been quite difficult. And we need to understand that our policy has been very tough towards the Islamic world. And there's either two ways to see this. One way is this idea that we're at war with Islam. And that's the way that, in fact, Osama bin Laden wants us to see this. Another way is to see it is that we're at war with al-Qaeda, and who are perverting Islam, and the rest of the Islamic world are people just like us who are trying to figure things out. And sometimes we have things that cause conflict with them, and we need to understand that and try and minimize those things, such as policies that support dictators or harm children.
Does it change the mosque debate at all, Andrea? Because now this guy, he's the one behind the mosque. He's representing us overseas with the Muslim world, and he's behind the mosque, and he's a man who seems to equate the actions of American government, sanctioned by the UN, with al-Qaeda.
Right. It sounds like he wants an apology. And we already know that maybe in this speech, he didn't say that the U.S. was culpable for the attacks of 9/11, but he said before that he believes that the United States is culpable for these attacks and that bin Laden was made in the USA.
So here's what he said. Here's a quote. This is, I just want to clarify, because what he said.
Didn't we give him funds in Afghanistan?
Let me just jump in. Let me just jump in so the viewers know exactly what he said. He said in an appearance on CBS's 60 Minutes, "I wouldn't say the United States deserved what happened on 9/11, but the U.S. policies were an accessory to the crime." And that was in a September 2001 interview. I mean, it was right after. So I'm sorry. Finish your point, Andrea, and then I'll let Mark respond.
An accessory to to the crime of driving planes into U.S. skyscrapers. So this guy has a very, very different, I think, worldview than we want to have for someone who's going to be building a structure down at ground zero. And I think what's really shocking to me, listening to those on the left trying to explain the situation, Megyn, is that they're asking the wrong questions. They're trying to defend this guy using the First Amendment and make excuses. I have not heard one commentator or one representative from the Muslim world try and explain these comments. And it begs the question, why isn't the imam explaining these comments himself?
Yeah.
If he wants to bridge gaps and heal this nation.
Well, maybe he will. I mean, right now he's overseas, right? As Eric Shawn points out, we reached out but didn't receive a response. But he has yet to clarify these, although apparently his wife attempted to. Mark, I'll give you the last thought on it.
Look, we're playing with fire here. This is racial resentment. This is fueling religious anger and hatred. We've had anchor babies. We've had terror babies. We've had the new Black Panther Party.
Oh, come on.
And this is religious freedom. And it doesn't just protect
You're going to make
speech
this a
that we
racist
like.
thing?
It doesn't. No, it's not that. It's about this resentment. It's about this building resentment that's been going on. And it's scary.
Is it,
I had
Mark,
a friend in a
let me
coffee
just say,
shop
is it really
who was
about that, or is it
confronted
about
saying that he was
good-hearted
a
people,
Muslim.
almost 70% of the American public, who just have legitimate questions about whether this man and this mosque should be sponsored and should go up steps from ground zero?
The First Amendment doesn't only protect people we like.
Right, but can't they have their objections to the location of it without being
us.
called racist and without being called anti-Islamic?
They might, but the point is that there's no justification for it. These people aren't responsible for 9/11. We don't hold them responsible.
I know, Mark, but you know the arguments. You know the arguments on the other side. I mean, you disagree, but you can't to wipe out the entire argument as you just shouldn't feel that way because it's anti-Islamic is also disrespectful.
It's also against the Constitution. It's against our values.
Okay, all right. I got to let that be the last word. Andrea and Mark, thank you both so much.
Thank you.